I still remember the sound of my grandma's kitchen chair scraping across the old linoleum floor just before I spoke. One back leg always wobbled, but Grandma Pearl refused to fix it. She said it reminded people to sit still and behave. Like every Sunday, the whole family was gathered around her table in Whitehall. A pot roast filled the room with its warm smell. The old window air conditioner rattled loudly because Grandma insisted central air was a waste of money. Mom Sharon sat beside me, slowly picking at her green beans. Uncle Azrick had claimed the seat at the head of the table, even though it wasn't his house. Aunt Fern poured herself another glass of sweet tea, and my cousin Marlo hid her phone under the table, scrolling while pretending to pay attention. I had practiced one sentence over and over in my car before coming inside. I'm moving out of my studio apartment. I found a new place. That was all I planned to say. I wasn't going to explain the cost, the size, or anything else. It wasn't anyone else's business. The moment I finished speaking, the room fell silent. It was the kind of silence where the clink of forks against plates sounded louder than people's voices. Uncle Azrick finally laughed. With what money? He didn't sound angry. He sounded amused, as if he couldn't imagine me doing something like that. A few people laughed with him. Without even looking up from her phone, Marlo added, "Maybe the landlord felt sorry for her." Then she went back to texting like she hadn't said anything. A few years earlier those comments would have crushed me. Now they didn't. I'd heard them too many times. My family always treated me the same way. Their words weren't cruel enough to start an argument, but they came often enough to slowly wear me down. To them, I was the cousin who picked a useless college major. I drove an old 2009 Corolla with a cracked windshield because fixing it wasn't worth the money. I lived in a tiny 500-square-foot studio apartment with a Murphy bed and a window air conditioner that leaked onto the same 3-floor tiles every summer. That was the version of Amelia they believed in. What they didn't know was that for the past 4 years, I had been saving and investing every extra dollar I earned. I worked as a physical therapy assistant at a clinic on Cleveland Avenue. The pay was decent but nothing impressive. Whenever extra PRN shifts became available, I took them. On weekends, I worked part-time at a medical spa doing patient intake because the owner liked how naturally I talked with people. I rarely bought new clothes. I skipped expensive salon visits. I kept driving that old Corolla until the day I finally sold it. Every family dinner came with another joke about my life. I never argued. Explaining myself to people who had already decided who I was felt pointless. During my second year of saving, I found a run-down 2-bedroom house on Yearling Road in Whitehall, only a few blocks from Grandma's house. It was a foreclosure with popcorn ceilings, outdated cabinets, and a back bedroom ruined by water damage. Most buyers walked away. I saw an opportunity. A coworker's husband introduced me to a contractor named Ruben, who did side jobs for little more than the cost of materials and a 6-pack of beer. After work, we spent evenings tearing out damaged walls, replacing rotten floors, and rebuilding the room together. I watched YouTube tutorials late at night to learn how to install subfloors. I figured out building permits, inspections, and everything else I needed to know. 8 months later, I sold the house for nearly twice what I had invested. I never told my family. Not because I was ashamed. Because the only time I mentioned that I was interested in real estate, Marlo laughed and said I couldn't even keep my old car running. After that, I decided my results would speak louder than my plans. So, good luck buying a house. Those were Marlo's last words before everyone moved on to another conversation. After dinner, I stood alone in Grandma Pearl's laundry room for almost 5 minutes, taking slow, deep breaths. That was the moment I made a decision. I'd rather be underestimated than spend my life arguing with people determined to misunderstand me. So I stayed quiet. With the profit from my first house flip, I bought a duplex in Reynoldsburg. I lived in one unit and rented out the other. The rental income covered almost my entire mortgage, so I was able to save nearly every paycheck from my regular job. On my days off, I earned my real estate license. I never planned to become a full-time agent. I simply wanted to avoid paying commission every time I bought or sold a property. By the 4th year, I had built enough savings and home equity to make a much bigger move. A bank-owned foreclosure appeared in New Albany. It was exactly the kind of house most buyers avoided. The kitchen was outdated. Water stains covered several ceilings. The repair list looked endless. Most people saw a disaster. I saw potential. I submitted an offer while everyone else walked away. Grandma Pearl was the only person who knew what I was doing. Not every detail but enough. Back in college she used to quietly slip $40 into my hand and whisper, "Don't tell anyone." Then she'd smile and say, "Money changes how families treat each other." Before long, everyone starts counting instead of caring. When I told her about the new Albany house, she simply nodded. "I knew you'd get here," she said. Then she looked me in the eyes. "Don't you dare let them make you feel small at your own table." 3 days after that Sunday dinner, the one with Uncle Azrick asking, "With what money?" and Marlo joking about my landlord, I sat at the counter in my tiny Clintonville apartment. It would be my last week living there. Instead of sending text messages, I ordered real invitations. Heavy white cardstock. Dark navy lettering. The kind professionally printed at a shop on High Street. They simply read, "Dinner. 6 p.m. My new address. ***. Nothing more. By then I'd learned that explaining myself to people who had already made up their minds was a waste of both words and effort. I mailed every invitation. It felt old-fashioned, but that was the point. I wanted each of them to hold the envelope, read the address, and spend a few days wondering. On the evening of the dinner, I arrived at the house around 3 o'clock. The caterer came soon after. I'd hired a small Italian restaurant in Gehenna that made stuffed shells so good they could bring tears to your eyes. As everything was being prepared, I stood quietly in my kitchen. Only 4 months earlier, a family of raccoons had been living beneath this house. Now sunlight poured through the windows that Reuben and I had restored ourselves one hot Saturday afternoon. It had been 91 degrees outside and we'd been too stubborn to bring enough water. Looking around, I couldn't help smiling. Every room reminded me how far I'd come. Around 5:45, I heard the first car pulling into the driveway. Then another. I walked to the front window with a glass of wine that I hadn't even taken a sip from. My mom's Buick arrived first. Uncle Azrick's pickup truck followed behind. Then Marlo pulled in with her little white Civic. Aunt Fern rode with them because her own car was still in the repair shop. The neighborhood had a decorative iron gate at the entrance with a call box and a stone pillar beside it. Mounted on the pillar was a polished brass plaque. It displayed the house number and the owner's last name, Voss. From inside the house, I watched Aunt Fern lean forward from the back seat, staring at the plaque. Even through the window, I could tell she was confused. Later, Mom told me exactly what she had said. "Why is her name on the gate?" No one answered. Uncle Azrick simply stared ahead without saying a word. Marlo actually lowered her phone. For Marlo, that was almost unbelievable. Before anyone had the chance to knock, I opened the front door. I didn't want them standing there trying to decide how they were supposed to react. I smiled warmly. "Hey, you all made it," I said. "Come on in. Dinner's almost ready." No one said much as they walked through the front door. The house wasn't flashy. It never needed to be. I've never liked anything overly fancy. Instead, I focused on restoring what was already there. The original hardwood floors had been refinished. The old popcorn ceilings were gone, replaced with smooth paint and simple light fixtures that fit the house without trying too hard. The house spoke for itself. My mom ran her hand along the wooden banister as if she needed to make sure it was real. We sat down for dinner. For the first 10 minutes, the conversation stayed safe. Traffic on Interstate 270. The weather. I let the silence do its job. There was no reason to rush into explanations. I'd spent 4 years quietly proving myself while everyone else had already decided who I was. Finally, Uncle Azrick cleared his throat. "So," he asked carefully, "is this your place or are you renting a room?" I smiled. "It's mine." Then for the first time I told them everything. I told them about the extra shifts at the physical therapy clinic, the weekend job at the medical spa, the foreclosure on Yearling Road, the long evenings working beside Reuben replacing damaged floors and fixing walls, the duplex in Reynoldsburg, getting my real estate license, every sacrifice I made over 4 years, every vacation I skipped, every unnecessary purchase I turned down, every dollar I saved so I could eventually buy this house. I didn't exaggerate anything. And I didn't apologize for any of it. The room stayed quiet. Marlo barely said a word, which was unusual for her. After a long pause, she finally looked at me. "I didn't know any of that." I nodded. "I know. That's because no one ever asked. You all made jokes about my old car, But no one ever asked what I was actually working toward. No one had an answer. Aunt Fern spent most of the evening looking around the house, quietly taking everything in. Mom disappeared into the kitchen while we were serving dessert. When I followed her, I found her wiping away tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have believed in you." They weren't tears of sadness. They were the tears of someone who felt proud and guilty at the same time. My mom wasn't someone who cried often. Grandma Pearl couldn't come that evening because her hip had been bothering her. After everyone left, I stepped onto the back porch and called her. "Well?" she asked. I laughed. "It went about how you probably expected." She chuckled. "I told you. Never let anyone make you feel small." Life didn't magically change after that dinner. Uncle Azrick still makes the occasional joke, but they're softer now. The edge is gone. Last month, Marlo asked if I'd explain how buying duplexes and renting one side worked. For her, that was probably as close to an apology as I'd ever get. And honestly, that was enough. Mom proudly tells everyone about my house now as if she helped build it herself. Maybe in her own quiet way she did. I've learned something through all of this. People judge you by what they can see. Your car. Your apartment. Your clothes. Your job title. Then they build an entire story about your life from those few details because it's easier than asking real questions. But you don't owe anyone an explanation of your dreams, your savings account, or your plans just so they'll believe in you. The most important work usually happens where nobody is paying attention. Quiet, steady effort rarely looks impressive while it's happening. That's exactly why it works. Most people are too busy making assumptions to notice your progress. And when the results finally speak for themselves, let them. You never needed to win the argument. You only needed to keep building the life they couldn't imagine.